Imagine spending like 3 weeks tailoring the absolute perfect pitch for a dream client.
Oh, yeah.
Or, spending hours and hours formatting your resume so it matches a job description perfectly.
Down to the last bullet point.
Right, down to the last bullet point. And you hit send, and you know in your gut that this is the one.
Mm-hmm.
And then you realize there is a massive, highly probable chance that no human eyes will ever even see it.
Yeah. It's brutal.
It's so brutal. Because you didn't get rejected, right? You didn't get outplayed by some competitor.
Yeah.
You just got swallowed completely by the ether.
It's a chilling thought, honestly.
Yeah.
But it really is the defining reality of modern professional communication. The universe didn't just say no to you. It didn't even acknowledge that you asked a question.
Exactly. And the immediate psychological reaction to that void, I mean, it's almost never rational.
No, never.
We don't sit back and logically think, oh, well, the algorithm must be filtering out my email domain, or, I bet their hiring budget got frozen. Instead, we internalize it instantly. We think, my work just isn't good enough, or my 15 years of experience are totally irrelevant now. My entire business model is fundamentally flawed.
It becomes a personal indictment.
Exactly. So today, we're taking a deep dive into a really fascinating conceptual framework. It was developed by WaveRen LLC, and it's titled Shouting into the Ether, Barriers and Boosters to Signal Clarity.
Which is such a necessary text right now.
It really is.
Because it treats this feeling of invisibility, not as a personal failure, but as a structural, mechanical breakdown.
Right.
It gives us a totally different lens to look through.
And that's exactly what we want to do today. The mission of our deep dive is to unpack exactly why we naturally interpret professional silence as personal failure.
Yeah.
But more importantly, we want to completely reframe how we navigate these high-volume, low-response environments. We're going to explore how to shift from this panicked, frustrated shouting into the void toward a mindset of objective market discernment. So, okay, let's unpack this. Because this feeling of shouting into the ether, it seems to transcend every single industry I look at right now.
It's ubiquitous.
Yeah.
And that's a crucial starting point for anyone listening who feels isolated by this.
Yeah.
Because whether you're a mid-career professional, someone who's been employed steadily for a decade, right?
Right.
And you suddenly face an unexpected layoff.
Which is happening a lot.
A lot. And you're thrust into a job market you haven't seen in 10 years.
Okay.
Suddenly, you are dealing with applicant tracking systems, automated video interviews, AI screeners.
It's terrifying.
It is. Or look at the parallel track.
Yeah.
Think about the entrepreneur trying to break into a saturated new software market.
Okay, yeah.
Their meticulously crafted sales pitches are just evaporating into crowded inboxes.
Okay.
Mechanically, both of these people are experiencing the exact same phenomenon.
Wow, okay.
They're suffering from what WaveRen calls feedback starvation.
Feedback starvation. I love that term.
Right.
Because it sounds clinical, like a nutritional deficiency.
Yes.
But it perfectly describes the strategic deficit we're operating in. Because if you think about a healthy system, there's always a feedback loop.
Exactly.
Like, think about a comedian testing material at an open mic.
That's a great example.
Right. They tell a joke, and that's the transmission. The audience laughs, or they groan, or, somebody coughs in the back.
Yeah, you get something.
You get something. That's the reception and the feedback. So the comedian immediately learns, oh, the pacing was off, or that word doesn't work. They adjust the punchline, and they transmit again the next night.
Right.
It's an immediate, closed, healthy loop.
But look at what happens when you sever that loop.
Yeah.
Modern professional systems, like those automated resume screeners you mentioned, or just the cultural normalization of professional ghosting.
Oh, the ghosting is out of control.
It really is.
Yeah.
Or algorithms that suppress your content without explaining why. They completely break that connection between transmission and reception.
Mm-hmm.
They leave people trying to make critical, life-altering business and career decisions with zero data to work with.
So you are essentially standing on a stage in a pitch-black room telling jokes, but you're wearing noise-canceling headphones.
Exactly.
You're tweaking the punchline without knowing if anyone even heard the setup.
Yes. And to understand the mechanics of why that loop breaks down, WaveRen deconstructs the process into what they call the signal chain.
Okay.
Because we have a terrible habit of thinking communication is just a straight line between two people, me and you.
Right. I speak, you hear.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's actually a multi-stage mechanical process. It goes from the sender to the signal, through a channel, into an environment, and finally to a receiver.
Okay, wait. So let me map that out in a real-world scenario just to make sure I have it.
Go for it.
So I am the sender.
Right.
The resume or the pitch deck I put together, that's the signal.
Yep.
The email platform or the Workday application portal I have to use, that's the channel.
Exactly.
And then the broader market reality or the specific corporate culture I'm sending it to, that is the environment.
Right.
And finally, the hiring manager or the VP of sales, that's the receiver.
That maps perfectly. And the insight here, the thing we always forget, is that a breakdown at any single point in that 5-part chain produces the exact same result on your end.
Which is silence.
Complete silence.
Which is where I really struggle with the conventional wisdom we're constantly fed by, career coaches and sales gurus.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if you go online right now and look for advice on why you aren't hearing back on your applications or your cold outreach, almost all of the advice focuses entirely on the sender.
100%.
The advice is always optimize your resume, build your personal brand, rewrite your pitch, upskill, get another certification. It is entirely focused on fixing you.
And it creates this illusion of control that can actually be deeply toxic if it's the only lens you're using.
Right, because think about an actual radio transmission. If I'm broadcasting a perfectly tuned, high-fidelity radio show, so I am the sender and my signal is flawless.
Right.
But my listener, the receiver, is currently driving through a concrete tunnel.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how much I tweak my studio equipment.
Not at all.
I could go out and buy a $10,000 microphone. I could hire a better audio engineer. I could just speak louder. They aren't going to hear it.
No.
The channel and the environment are compromised. So why do we automatically assume our antenna is broken just because the other person hit a tunnel?
I love that radio analogy because it highlights a major trap. But let's push it even further.
Okay.
It's not just that they are in a tunnel. It's that when they don't call into the radio station to say they love the show, you assume your show is terrible.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
WaveRen calls this the false equation. We have been conditioned to believe that a lack of response automatically equals a defective sender.
Yes, that is the exact internal monologue. If they didn't reply to my pitch, my business idea must be garbage.
We assume that sending a legitimate, high-quality signal guarantees reception. And when that reception doesn't happen, we just look inward.
Right.
We ignore the reality that the channel might be overloaded, or the environment might be incredibly chaotic, or the receiver might just be completely overwhelmed by other obligations.
Let's talk about that chaos. Because the modern professional environment is definitely not, a quiet room where a hiring manager is sitting by a fire, patiently waiting to read my proposal.
Not even close.
The sources introduced this concept of the modern noise floor. And I really want to dig into how that actually functions, because we all know things are busy. But how does this noise floor mechanically work against us?
Well, in audio engineering, the noise floor is the measure of the signal created from the sum of all the noise sources and unwanted signals within a system.
Oh, okay.
You can't hear a whisper if the air conditioning is roaring.
Right.
In professional communication, that noise floor is currently deafening, and it's being generated by a few specific engines. First, you have applicant or outreach volume. It has never been mechanically easier to apply for a job or send a mass email. One click, and 1,000 resumes go out.
So an applicant tracking system, an ATS, is supposed to filter that, right? But it actually contributes to the noise.
Immensely. Because to deal with the sheer volume, ATS algorithms use keyword matching, which forces everyone to stuff their resumes with the exact same keywords just to pass the gatekeeper.
So everyone sounds the same.
Exactly. It creates a massive flood of false positive identical sounding applications. The real nuanced signals get completely buried under a mountain of artificially optimized noise.
It's like everyone in the room suddenly bought a megaphone, so now nobody can hear anything.
Yes.
But it's not just the technology creating noise, is it? It's the internal environment of these companies.
Oh, the internal noise is arguably worse. We picture a hiring manager looking at our resume and actively saying no.
Right, like they're judging us.
But the reality is often a budget freeze that happened on Tuesday, but HR didn't get around to taking the job posting down until Friday. Or an internal candidate was promised the job weeks ago, but corporate policy dictates they must post it externally for compliance reasons.
That is so frustrating.
Or organizational indecision. The company doesn't actually know if they want a senior director or a junior manager, so they post for both and paralyze themselves trying to decide and eventually just abandon the search altogether.
So a prospect might genuinely love your entrepreneurial pitch. They open the email, they think, wow, this logistics software is exactly what we need.
Yeah.
But their own company is undergoing a massive merger that week, so they flag your email, tell themselves they'll reply on Monday, and then just completely forget you exist.
What's fascinating here is that a legitimately good signal can absolutely exist in a bad reception environment.
Right.
Your value proposition could be pristine, but it is currently submerged beneath a noise floor that is entirely out of your control.
I hear that, but I also know the immediate panic that sets in for a listener right now.
Sure.
If I'm a job seeker, my internal monologue is screaming, okay, but I need a job. When we don't see that internal chaos at the company, our instinct is to panic and resort to what I'd call volume expansion.
Yes, the volume expansion.
Like if 5 applications didn't work, I feel a moral imperative to send 50.
Mhm.
If my cold emails aren't getting replies, I need an automated tool to send 1,000 a week. We try to outshout the noise.
Which is the most dangerous instinct you can have in a saturated system. Pumping up your volume doesn't strengthen your signal.
That is a crucial distinction. Volume is not signal stress.
Not at all. If you are blasting static, turning up the volume just gives everyone a headache.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Pumping out more of the same uncalibrated message merely exhausts you, the sender. And worse, it actively degrades the entire environment. You are just adding more trash to an already saturated ecosystem, raising the noise floor for everyone else, including yourself.
You're treating communication like a lottery where you just need to buy more tickets rather than a system of targeted transmission. But if I don't send 50 resumes a day, it feels like I'm giving up. It feels like I'm surrendering to the silence.
And that brings us to the core psychological shift required here.
Yeah.
The reason it feels like surrendering is because we miscategorize what silence actually is. Silence is data.
It's data, but as WaveRen points out, it is deeply incomplete data.
Yeah.
And human beings are terrified of incomplete data.
We despise it. Think about the psychological difference between having a door slammed in your face versus seeing a door left open, just a crack, leading into a pitch-black room.
Okay, yeah. The slam door hurts, but it's definitive. I know exactly where I stand. I can walk away.
Right. A rejection provides concrete information. Know your price is too high is actionable.
Yeah.
But that door left open a crack in the dark, that's incomplete data. You don't know if someone is in there sleeping, if they're hiding from you, or if the room is completely empty. Our brains are hardwired to recognize patterns and complete the picture.
Right.
So when faced with the dark room of professional silence, we naturally invent monsters to fill the void.
We invent the monster of our own inadequacy.
Yes.
Like, they aren't answering because my business idea isn't viable. They aren't answering because I'm too old for this industry and they can tell.
Exactly.
We construct these massive sweeping narratives of personal failure based entirely on the absence of information. We take incomplete data and turn it into a conclusive, damning verdict on our own worth.
Which is why the required discipline here is drawing a hard line in the sand between what we actually know as empirical fact and what we are assuming because the room is dark.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because how do we operationalize that discipline? Let's get into the toolkit.
Let's do it.
If pumping up my volume is actually damaging my chances and exhausting me, I'm left paralyzed. How do I get noticed if I'm not allowed to yell? And also, does an entrepreneur's approach to market saturation differ from a job seeker's here?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, mechanically they're identical. The context shifts, but both a job seeker and an entrepreneur must identify appropriate receivers in the market. Both must communicate a specific value proposition. Both must select the right channels to bypass the noise floor, compete for scarce attention, and make strategic decisions about when to persist and when to pivot.
Right.
The resume is really just a B2B sales pitch, where the product is your labor.
So if volume is out, the alternative has to be about making the signal itself heavier or sharper or more penetrative. How do we do that without just manufacturing fake hype?
You apply what the framework calls signal boosters, and you hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
A signal booster does not manufacture value out of thin air.
Right.
It cannot make a bad product good, and it cannot give you 10 years of coding experience you don't actually have.
Right.
What it does is make your existing legitimate value infinitely easier for the receiver to detect.
So what's the first booster we need to look at?
Clarity and specificity. The single biggest reason signals get lost in the noise floor is because they force the receiver to burn cognitive calories trying to decode them.
Oh, that makes sense.
If your pitch or your LinkedIn profile is full of generic jargon like, if you are a synergistic thought leader driving paradigm shifts in a dynamic ecosystem, your signal is muddy. It blends right into the static. Specificity acts like a laser.
So instead of I'm a synergistic thought leader, you say I streamline supply chain logistics to save mid-size retailers 15% on warehouse overhead.
Exactly. The receiver doesn't have to decode it. The value is immediately apparent.
Okay.
The second booster is relevance. This is where you have to look at the environment. Does your signal solve a problem the receiver actually has right now?
Which goes back to the idea of transmitting on the wrong frequency. Like, I could have the most pristine, specific signal in the world about my graphic design skills.
Right.
But if that company is currently bleeding money because their back-end servers keep crashing, my design pitch is completely irrelevant to their current crisis.
It's a great signal, but it has zero relevance to the receiver's immediate environment, which leads to the third major booster, relationships and channel selection. This is about bypassing the congested environments entirely.
Right. If the Workday application portal is saturated with 10,000 keyword-stuffed resumes, that channel is fundamentally compromised. It's a traffic jam.
So you have to ask, can human connection, like a warm referral, a direct message to a former colleague, an informational interview, can that bypass the algorithm? Are you transmitting where the receiver is actually paying attention, or are you just throwing pennies into the wishing well of a generic contact us form?
Okay, I want to make this intensely practical for the listener. Let's walk through a hypothetical scenario using what WaveRen calls the clarity audit.
Great idea.
Because we need a way to figure out if we have a signal problem, like a bad product or a terrible resume, or if we just have an environment problem, like bad timing or a congested channel.
A step-by-step audit is the perfect way to distinguish between signal interference and a genuine lack of market fit.
Let's invent a character. Let's say her name is Sarah, and she's an entrepreneur selling a new inventory management software to mid-sized retailers. She has sent out 200 cold emails over the last month, and she has received 0 replies. She is currently sitting at her desk experiencing total feedback starvation, and she is about to conclude that her software is completely useless.
Yeah.
What is step 1 of the clarity audit for Sarah?
Step 1, Sarah needs to ask herself, what variables have I actually tested?
Okay.
Because if she has sent the exact same email template with the exact same subject line to the exact same list of general manager titles 200 times and heard nothing, she hasn't tested anything.
Yeah.
She has just repeated one variable 200 times.
She has no idea if the pricing model is wrong, or if the subject line got caught in a spam filter, or if general managers aren't even the ones who buy software.
Precisely. She is operating on pure repetition, not scientific testing. To test a variable, she needs to send 20 emails with a subject line about saving money and 20 emails with a subject line about saving time and see if one gets open more.
Okay, so step 2 of the audit. Sarah looks at her data, and she sees that 50 of her emails were actually opened, but nobody replied. She comes to us and says, see? They looked at my software and they hated it. My product is a failure.
Right.
How do we audit that?
We apply the core discipline we talked about earlier. We ask Sarah what is hard evidence and what is just an assumption.
The fact that 50 people opened the email is hard evidence. The idea that they hated the product is a massive assumption.
It's a complete fabrication to fill the void of the darkroom.
Yeah.
We have to force Sarah to write down only what she actually knows to be true. What does she know? She knows the subject line was effective enough to earn an open. She knows the body of the email did not compel a reply. That's it.
Wow. Yeah.
She does not know if they thought it was too expensive. She does not know if they already have a vendor they're locked into for another year.
Which completely shifts the emotional weight. She goes from my product is a failure to my email copy needs to be punchier. That brings us to step 3 of the audit, which I think is the most important for maintaining your sanity during a long job hunt or a sales slump. Sarah needs to ask, what can I change and what is completely out of my control?
This step is entirely about reclaiming agency. Sarah cannot control a retailer's sudden budget freeze. She cannot control the fact that the prospect's inbox gets 400 emails a day. But she can control the specificity of her message.
Right.
She can control which channels she uses. Maybe she stops emailing and starts showing up at industry trade shows. She can control the evidence she provides in her pitch.
By drawing that boundary, she stops agonizing over the noise floor and focuses entirely on the integrity of her signal,
Yeah.
which perfectly transitions us into the final phase of this framework. We are moving from the reactive emotional frustration of shouting into the void toward the objective, calculated observation of a strategist.
It requires a profound paradigm shift.
It really does. It's the realization that we have to stop obsessing over the question, how do I get them to respond?
Right.
Because asking that question keeps you trapped in an emotional cycle of seeking validation. You are constantly begging the universe to tell you that you are good enough. Instead, the strategist asks a very different question. What is the information available to me actually saying?
Adopting the strategist mindset changes your entire behavioral baseline. A strategist isn't emotionally devastated by silence. A strategist is scientifically curious about it.
I love that. Scientifically curious.
Yes. They observe the landscape, they start mapping out the terrain, noting where the signals are getting through and where they are dying.
So what does that look like on a Tuesday morning for our job seeker or our entrepreneur? How are they acting like a strategist?
They are tracking drop-offs. So back to the job seeker. They apply for 30 jobs. 10 are through an automated portal, 10 are through direct emails to recruiters, and 10 are through referrals from former colleagues.
Okay.
The strategist notes that the 10 portal applications resulted in complete silence. The 10 direct emails got 2 automated rejections. But the 10 referrals resulted in 3 screening calls.
The strategist doesn't look at the portal silence and think, I'm unemployable.
Oh.
The strategist looks at the data and says, the portal channel is dead for my specific profile. I need to reallocate all my energy into relationship-driven channels.
They identified exactly where the signal chain was breaking. It's not a reflection of their worth. It's a structural reality of the channel they chose.
So what does this all mean? It all comes down to the core mandate from the WaveRen framework. Find the signal.
Find the signal. It is the ultimate exercise in discernment over volume. When the environment becomes overwhelmingly noisy, throwing more noise at it is self-sabotage.
Discernment means recognizing that sometimes the signal tells you to persist. Maybe you got one enthusiastic reply out of 50, but that one reply proves your value proposition is viable if you can just find the right audience.
And sometimes the signal tells you to change channels entirely because the one you're using is thoroughly blocked by algorithmic gatekeepers.
And sometimes, which is honestly the hardest thing for high achievers to accept, the signal tells you that you simply do not have enough data yet to draw a conclusion.
That's the hardest part.
You have to stop panicking, run more controlled tests, and gather more evidence.
You have to develop the discipline to wait in the dark room without inventing monsters. You don't predetermine what the market signal must say. You learn how to detect what it is actually communicating.
You know, this concept of finding the signal amidst the noise is so resonant, and it touches on such a deep human desire to be seen and understood, that WaveRen actually produced a companion song for this framework.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, it's titled, Fittingly Find the Signal. We've put a link to it in the deep dive description. It musically explores this exact tension we've been talking about, you know, the agonizing frustration of the noise, the desperate search for discernment, and the ultimate clarity that comes when you finally tune in to the right frequency. It's a really fascinating, visceral way to experience these ideas beyond just our analytical breakdown.
It highlights that this isn't just a clinical business problem. It is an emotional journey. If we trace the thematic arc of everything we've discussed today, it moves through a very specific, recognizable sequence.
Yeah.
It almost always starts with frustration, the visceral anger of doing good work and being ignored by the market. But if you apply the framework, that frustration moves into recognition, understanding the mechanical realities of the signal chain and the modern noise floor.
You stop blaming yourself and start blaming the concrete tunnel.
Exactly. Which leads to examination, performing that clarity audit on your own approach, checking your variables. Then comes discernment, the rigorous discipline of separating your emotional assumptions from hard evidence. And finally, if you follow the sequence, you arrive at agency.
Agency. You are no longer a victim of the ATS algorithm or the ghosting recruiter or the messy inbox. You realize that your value exists independently of their immediate response.
You are reminded that the absence of a response deserves rigorous, objective investigation, not automatic self-condemnation. The task of the modern professional is not endless shouting. It is observing, learning, and adjusting. You have to stop shouting louder into the ether and start finding the signal.
I want to leave everyone listening with one final thought to mull over, building on everything we've unpacked today. We've talked so much about how painful silence is, how we view it as a terrifying void or a dark room.
Hmm.
But what if the most valuable piece of market feedback you will ever receive in your career isn't a definitive, enthusiastic yes, or even an agonizing, clear no? What if the best feedback is the sudden, jarring realization that you've been transmitting on the completely wrong frequency to the completely wrong audience all along?
Wow.
Silence might feel like an empty void right now, but what if it's actually the ultimate blank canvas, forcing you to step back and completely redesign your entire approach to your own value?
It's a terrifying blank canvas, but it's where the most profound career pivots are born.
Thanks for diving in with us today. Keep testing those variables, keep observing your drop-offs, and please stop assuming your antenna is broken just because you're driving through a tunnel. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.